by Jessie J. Jolie, you can introduce yourself.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Jolie Bridget Oyaro. I am listening in from Molem in Nairobi, and my favorite song is right now is Songi Songi. Yes, and I am glad to be here.
Mention someone else who can go next.
Oh, sorry, Moses Baraza, if you can hear me.
Thank you so much. My name is Moses Baraza Akongo Orwa. I'm listening in from Umoja, Inako. My favorite song and from all time is Nerea by Super Soul, Sauti Sol, I mean. Let me call Eric Hasenya to introduce himself. Thank you.
Eric, you able to unmute and introduce yourself? If you're not able to in the chat box. In the meantime, we could have, Moses, you could mention someone else you'd want to go next.
Okay. Let me call upon Collins Omondi.
Okay.
I don't know why I had that feeling. Anyway, thank you so much, Moses. My name is Collins Omondi Oko, and I'm following from Kariobangi South. Song, I love a gospel song in it, Mungu ni Mungu tu, just like that. It is a full one. Thank you so much. And I'm calling upon Rita.
Rita, I don't know if you can unmute yourself and say hi to us. If not, and in the meantime, Collins, maybe you could mention another person.
Okay. Maureen.
All right, thank you so much, Collins. My name is Maureen Gikonyo from the far end in Nairobi and right Kamulu. My favorite song, I don't have a favorite song, but I have a favorite artist, Nadia Mukami, and her latest song, Rohombaya, is the hit that I listen to. It's mode. Yeah. I'd like to pick, no, who hasn't gone? Arnold.
Good evening. My name is Arnold Gekonge, and I'm tuning in from here in Nairobi, the sides of Thika Road. And my favorite song, Hold Everything by Timmy Dakol. Thank you. So I call upon someone else to introduce themselves. Brenda Ochuku.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brenda Kemuma Ochuku. I'm listening from South Sea, Nairobi. I don't have a favorite song, so I'll just say by Socio-Economic. And I'll call upon Seth Maori. I don't know if he's introduced himself.
No, he has not, Seth.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Seth Maori Nyachoya from Embakasi East. My favorite artist is Ben B, and he has a song called Binadamu. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I call upon Nelson. Nelson.
Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
I am Nelson Yang Manyala. I'm joining in from Kahawindani, Kiambu County. Currently, I've been listening to Noka a lot to choose a favorite song, but I think I'll choose one called Heading Home. I'll pick Eric Hasenya to go next if he hasn't introduced himself.
Eric has typed in the chat box. He says he was in a relatively unsafe area. I hope you're now in a safe area. And he's from Huruma, Nairobi. And the favorite song is Babu Bali. Yes, by Nasty C. Thank you so much, Eric. I hope I said that way. I think the second last person is Kiluva. Kiluva, you can unmute and say hi to us. Share where you are listening from and what is your favorite song.
Hello, hi everyone. Okay, I'm Kiluva Evans. I'm listening from Juja, Kiambu County. And then my favorite song is Hold My Hand by Michael Jackson. Thank you.
Amazing. Last but not least, Margaret. Margaret or Rita. Rita, we've also not heard from you. You can also type in the chat box if you're not able to unmute. So I'm not sure if Margaret and Rita are able to hear us. So I think we will just proceed. If you can, and if you can hear us, feel free to type in the chat box so that we get to know each other. Welcome, Janet. We're just introducing ourselves. Would you like to say hi to us? You can say you introduce yourself using your name, where you're coming from or listening from, and your favorite song. If you're not able to do that, feel free to also type it in the chat box to proceed. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret says she's listening in from Uthiru. Welcome, we're glad to have you. So I think we will go right into the discussion. Today we want to have a discussion on suicide, and we talk about suicide prevention. And just as I had mentioned, it will be lovely if we all contributed to the conversation. We give our views on the different things that we will be talking about. So let's feel free to share, to talk amongst ourselves so that we know how we can best navigate this current issue. As we know, there has been a lot of concern because of the rising cases of suicide. I will start by sharing some statistics with us. a research by WHO shows that close to 1 million people die every year due to suicide. And that is a very, very big number. 1 million people is a very big number because it's a very productive people. And that is translated into a person dying by suicide in every 40 seconds. So you can imagine by the time we started this meeting, 30, the number of people in different places who might have taken their lives by suicide, if we are talking about a person taking their life in every 40 seconds. And these numbers are likely to be much higher because in our country, there is no, and so many other countries, there are no information management systems. And again, the fact that suicide is still a crime in so many countries makes so many cases not be reported. The fact that reporting is not also done in the right way at the registry, it's probably written food poisoning or other factors that medics could write, but they fail to write suicide. So due to all these factors, you might actually realize that the number is far much higher than that, which is a very sad situation. And why this is the case, their likelihood of men even probably dying more to taking their lives to suicide more or dying by suicide more than women. And we would love to hear from all of various affairs. As we saw, according to our statistics, in the last 3 months, just last 3 months, 4 people took lives to suicide. And what is not normally reported is for every successful case, there's a likelihood of 25 unsuccessful cases. So you can imagine with every one successful suicide, there are 25 other attempted cases. We do not know those ones. And others that do not get to the limelight. So that means there's a very, very, very big concern. And we can discuss how and why that is the case and how to go about that situation. And there are at risk of taking their lives to suicide. For example, first responders in crisis situations due to trauma, that includes the policemen, and that have been seeing cases of police being in distress a lot, taking their lives to suicide or even attacking each other, families. So that's the first group. The other group is the youth. Due to different issues they are going through at this critical age. So if one is not able to cope well as they navigate problems, we have seen that the youth is very vulnerable. And today we are going to be talking about that as we talk about the social determinants of suicide. And the last group is men. And that is where I would really like us to begin, because research has shown that men are likely to take their lives more to suicide more than women. And for this, I would like to hear from the men in the house. You can share your thoughts on this. Why do you think that this is the case? Why do you think that men take their lives to suicide more than women? Maybe we can start there.
Thank you so much. And as I said before, I work closely in planning designing and implementing, and also evaluating violence prevention programs for boys and men. And they give stressful experiences. Now, coming back to men, there is this thing under gender in a social construction of gender, where traditionally the male gender roles discourage emotional expression. And I think this is one of the areas where men feel like I'm entangled in this gender box where I need to behave in this way. If I have issues that are affecting me, I don't need to speak out. Why? Because I will be deemed as weak. Why will I be deemed as weak? The society, that is us, have put it very clearly that men, you guys need to be strong for the others, okay? But they have forgotten that we are human. Human get tired. We get stressed up. We can break down. We can show emotions. But due to that male gender role, it discourages that, the emotional expression. And then what will men do? They will try to self-treat. We will try to self-treat. Tunaona we can deal with this on our own. So what do? We resent to taking a lot of alcohol hapa nje. We take a lot of unprescribed drugs because we want to forget about what we are going through. And that one is just pushing the problem further ahead. Tutaipika huko mbele tukiendelea. So I think the biggest aspect of this is what I've talked about, the gender roles perspective, what is said out here about we men, sisi wanaume, how we're supposed to behave out there in the public. So we end up self-treating this and just showing that, yeah, we are strong, but we break inside. We can go down easily. We're also human. So I think that would be the major one that I would talk about. And I think I can add more as we continue, but I would also leave the floor for any other person to comment on that. But I would stick on that, on the issue of traditional gender roles that are put in place for men. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins, for those very, very important points. I really agree that socialization or the gender roles that we have given to the different genders make it a little bit difficult for men to be able to open up. And maybe we can hear from the other men in the house. And that also opens up the avenue for us to talk about, knowing that that is the situation, what are the different dynamics in perceptions between males and females on suicide prevention. So knowing that this is the situation, the society doesn't give men per se an opportunity to express themselves, and that is why they would prefer to self-treat. What are the different dynamics in those perceptions on suicide prevention for the different genders? What's our take on that? How would we best handle then the situation on suicide prevention from our different dynamics as males and females? So I will open that to the public. I would love to hear the opinions of different people. Let's feel free to contribute to that. Moses, you have raised your hand. You can go ahead.
Thank you so much. There's this thing Collins has just mentioned, self-treat. I think for men, that's where the problem begins, because when they are in a problem, they tend to isolate themselves and try to self-treat. But when it backfires, they fall into shame. Shame comes to self-discrimination. And if there is no intervention, yeah, through other platforms, that when suicide comes in, yeah, that's the only solution they think of. But now, maybe to prevent that kind of incident, intervention is needed, whereby now as friends, as social media, as colleagues, we come, we talk, we share. Yeah, that's the only way we can maybe resolve such like an incident to not to happen. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. So we need to embrace that culture of sharing. It is not bad for a man to share. We need to change that perception that we have gotten from the society, that a man should not share because it seems like a sign of weakness, but we say it is not. And for us as ladies, we need to provide that safe space, because a lot of men will say it's not that we do not want to share. It's not that we just want to stay with our problems, but the people we are coming to talk to do not provide a safe space in different ways. For example, they might now see you in a different way, or they might even use what you're trying to say as a way to fight back. So it's very important for us as ladies to then provide a safe space so that men feel comfortable to share. Let's hear from any other person who has views on the different dynamics in the perceptions of both genders, that's males and females, on suicide prevention, knowing that there are these attitudes and certain stigma towards men sharing and such things. So let's hear from at least 2 more people and then we can proceed.
Maybe I can contribute to the first part on why like men complete or rather die by suicide more than women. I was reading somewhere that sometimes the reason why inakuwa rahisi for a man to like complete the suicidal procedure, it's because most times unapata men use lethal arms, and for example, a gunshot, kusave mtu from a gunshot is much harder, rather than utapata madem most times they'd go for maybe poison. You know, poison unaweza kimbisha msee hosi. So I think hiyo dynamic ya men using like lethal weapons to like die by suicide, and on the other hand you find women now using less lethal weapons, for example like poison, kuna time ya kumkimbisha hosi. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jolie, and that is very true. It's very true, and that is why so many cases are successful, while for women it might be many attempted cases but not successful. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Anyone else who would like to share those different dynamics in the different genders when it comes to suicide prevention? So I think if we have any contributions to give to that, we can feel free to also type that in the chat box. Let's educate each other. Men, if you feel there are any other ways that we could be there for men more, please let's type that in the chat box. Women, if you feel there are any other ways that we can support men and even women, let's type that in the chat box, because the goal is suicide prevention for all. So let's feel free to continue that conversation in the chat box, talking about how we might both help each other to prevent more cases of suicide. So allow me to go to the next question, which I will direct to Jolie. Maybe Jolie, you could educate us on everything to do with suicide. Educate us on the signs that we need to look out for. You could also share with us what are the things that might even lead someone to being suicidal in the first case, and how to help someone if they get themselves in that situation. We will also contribute to that conversation from our different perspectives. Yes. So we could talk about the signs and symptoms, how someone will even find themselves there, and what they can do or what we can do when we know that someone is in that situation. Let's also feel free to raise our hands if we have something to contribute to this topic or a question.
Okay. So I'll just answer like the first part. I think what the help part tuta contribute sisi wote, and I think it's more reasonable ikikam huko mwisho mwisho. So of course, some of the signs and symptoms that we really need to look into when it comes to someone who we feel is suicidal. Most times you'll find that person talking about suicide and making like sentences like, I am going to kill myself, mi nitajiua. Sometimes I wish I was not born. So when you hear someone, maybe it could be a relative, it could be your friend, anaongea maneno kama hayo, you need to be very keen and you need to really watch out for them and look out for them. You can even like reach out to those near him or her and make them know that this person ameanza kukuwa na suicidal thoughts. Anaanza kuongea story ya kukufa, anaanza kuongea stories za ana wish hangezaliwa. Then the other one is withdrawing from social contact and wanting to be left alone. For example, if this person was a very outgoing person, then all of a sudden, they don't want to go anywhere. Anataka tu kukaa indoors. That is also one sign and symptom that the person is kind of suicidal. Then of course, having mood swings. For example, today you're doing well, the next day, mood zako ziko huko down, kesho hivyo, like it's a trend of mood swings all around. That is also another sign like to look out for. Also feeling hopeless and trapped in most situations. Maybe you have like financial constraints, then uko like, mi hata sitaweza. Sioni kama naeza pata hiyo do, sioni kama, as in, they are always negative when it comes to small issues. Of course, money issues is not a small issue, but unapata most times when they have like a problem, wanna feel too, they cannot make it. So try find out more, like why is this person talking this way, or why is this person reacting this way? Then of course, changing their normal routines. This is someone who does very good at work, or rather asubuhi ako na ka routine fulani, atakuja asalimie watu kwa ofisi, ama mko na yeye shule akuja amegotea students wote kwa class. Then maybe all of a sudden sasa tuseme hiyo wiki tu imefika, anaingia job, hasalimii msee. Watu wanaenda lunch, labda yeye haendi. People are going out for break, him or she is not going out. So that is also one sign to look out for. Like mtu mwenye amekuanga na ka routine fulani, hata we mwenyewe you've monitored that routine, but now they are no longer like doing that routine anymore. Then of course, increase in use of alcohol and drugs. This person anaweza kuwa alikuwa anakunywa ama anaweza kuwa hakukuwa anakunywa, and then all of a sudden they come to maybe to the office, ama hata church, ama hata like a social place, wamelewa tu. Every other time they are not sober. So that means that intake yake ya alcohol ime increase, intake yake ya drug abuse ime increase, na drug use yani ime increase, then now it becomes abuse. So this person can no longer function without using those drugs. And this is someone that hakukuanga anatumia hizo vitu, ama hata kama alikuwa anatumia, they were using it at the very minimal level, but now they've increased their level of intake. That means there is a sign that he or she is going through some mental health issue. Then saying goodbye to people as if they won't be seeing them again. Inaweza kuwa kaa jokes saa zingine, but you find kuna ule best yako tu anakuambia chibae, sidhani tutaonana tena. You know, such a statement can seem to be very funny or very awkward, but at times people mean it. There's someone, kuna mtu atakwambia bye, hatutaonana tena, alafu after 2 days unasikia they died. So when someone talks about that, it's important to try connect to them and find out why they are saying that way also. Of course, being preoccupied with death, dying, or violence. In term, utapata maybe this person is now watching movies zenye ziko na violence, ama movies zenye ziko na vita, ama movies zenye ziko na vitu tu za kukufa, ama anashinda tu akiongelea stori za kukufa. Anything munaongea yako tu. Na je mtu ukikufa, na je nikikufa. So when someone is preoccupied with such thoughts, it means they are becoming suicidal. Then getting the means to take their own life, such as buying a gun or stocking pills. Ukiona huu msee si msik, ama labda ako tu mgonjwa kiasi, but ama you find out they have stocked so many pills in their closet ama in their kabati, na huu ni msee mwenye labda hata akuangi mgonjwa. Try find out hizo pills ni za kufanya nini, because kuna wale watu pia kunywa hizo sleeping pills na wanakufa tu without your knowledge. You just hear someone slept and died. So when you see a friend, a relative, just someone close, they might be close to you or not so close to you, huu mtu akuangi mgonjwa na akona madawa, there is something fishy going on. And there are some who also get into risky, destructive behaviors. For example, driving recklessly. Ama utapata ataenda akunywe, aanze kujigonga, and this is someone who's not used to such kind of behavior. That means they want to take their life. And at times unapata tu, mtu labda alienda akalewa, ana drive tu gari vibaya tu, ndio maisha yake enda. Ama unasikia mtu akisema ati hata nasikia tu nisimame pale kwa barabara gari ikuje inigonge ipite na mimi. So such kinds of talk, such kinds of behaviors, it's something we should watch out for. And there are some who also develop personality changes. For example, they're just anxious all of a sudden, and this is someone that normally they are not anxious, ama they are not agitated with small things, but now kitu yote tu kidogo tu inamfanya na feel anxious and feel agitated. So when someone around you experiences such, you see such signs, just know that is a warning sign, because this is someone that was not used to being that way. So when you see that small change, just know this person is not doing okay. And the much you can do, of course, is try find out why they're behaving in such a manner. And also, if you cannot do it yourself, maybe try talk to someone closer to them or a family member and tell them that you've witnessed such and such a behavior. Can you help? Ikishindikana pia, you can, if it's someone that wants help, you can also like refer them to maybe a psychologist ama someone that can offer some form of counseling. So sijui kama kuna mchango ingine kutoka kwa forum. From my side, I am done. Back to you, Immaculate.
Thank you so much, Jolie, for shedding light on that topic, on that issue, and being very comprehensive in that. So we are really grateful for that. And just as we have heard, the most important thing is when we notice some of these signs, kindly be keen. Don't assume that maybe these changes are normal, or this person is seeking attention when they talk like this, or this has always been how he talks, because sometimes we might assume that they are seeking attention, but they might not be. There's people who say, but they started saying this from a very young age, so we are even used to him threatening us. And it's attention seeking. And then eventually the person does that. So let's take it a little bit serious, because no one verbalizes those words if they have not made peace with the idea. So it's very important that whether we think it's attention seeking or not, we take it seriously. And some of the places that people might be sharing this information might even be on social media, and we think it's a joke. because the responses we maybe give on social media are very brutal. For example, there are people who will even give them ideas of methods they can use. Other times we say RIP, things that we think might be funny, or, we are making that situation lighter. But this person is actually making a cry for help, and we should not ignore it or minimize the situation. So thank you so much, Jolie, for shedding light on that. And I am wondering if, oh yes, Collins has something to add.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. And Jolie, thank you so much for that. I've listened to every single word you've said, and for sure, thinking about suicide is scary. Just thinking about it is very scary. You may think you're very strong. You feel like you can deal with it. You may also feel like things will never be okay. Things will never be better. But one thing I always know is that you are not alone in that. And I've read in the charts what Eric wrote, and I think it's very, very true about handing power to someone else over you. There's something here called happiness. Watu wanaonanga happiness ni kitu tu ile, provided niko na familia yangu, I'm happy. My friend, happiness comes in totally different angles. I always think happiness is an inside job. You don't have to show me you are, but it's an inside job ndani yako. And what I always say is never, never, ever assign anyone else that much power over your life. And I'm saying this because I'm looking at one factor that really makes men, I'm going to talk about men, what makes men go into all these suicidal thoughts, issues of broken relationships, where people come in with a lot of over expectations. You as a man, wakati ulikuwa na grow and you said, I want to live this kind of life that will be umeitengeneza kwa kichwa vizuri sana. You've created all those things that you think is what can I say, itakuletea happiness. And then you end up to realize things are never like what you are thinking. Earth is hard. You cannot just achieve them in one day. Sasa unaanza kukuwa na shida. Ulikuwa ushapiga hadi promises to someone that you think anakupenda, or rather anakupenda. Ukatengeneza all these things kwa kichwa yako na ukamwambia, now haziwork. Sasa blame game inaanza hapa. Things start happening bako unajiuliza what is really happening. And then you start thinking about the easy way out. I think when people think about suicide is they often, it's like a sign that you want to escape from that thing that you had created in your mind that you couldn't let out. The things that are within our reach yenye tunaweza tukabadilisha, like over expectations, but there are those that we cannot, like COVID-19 wakati ilikuja, it hit people. Watu walianza kufikiria vitu mingi kwa sababu when you think about being isolated because ulipatwa na COVID, you ni stress enough. That one huwezi control jui iko wapi kwa hewa, but when you follow the rules how to prevent it, utatoboa. But things like over expectations, umezieka kwa kichwa zikakataa kuwork, and then people are leaving you alone on a kuhepa. You're a liar, you did not do what you wanted them to believe that you will do. Unaingia into depression. And then sasa unaweza kuona, I'm not man enough, I couldn't give this, I couldn't. Na ni wewe ulicreate. You created it even in the mind of the other person. So what I'm trying to say is there are ways to feel better, very many, and I still insist you are not alone. Ukisikiza stories za watu hapa nje, utaona hata hiyo yako si issue. But until when will you start ignoring all these signals za depression? So last but not least, I would say kuna hizi symptoms zingine zinakuja, unaanza kuona hizo zinaitwa red flags. I'm overthinking, kichwa inaniuma, but unasema hii ni stress tu, nikipata pesa itaisha. Pesa inakuja na unashika kwa mkono na inapotea, unaiguzanga hivi inapotea, unarudi kwa the same state. So una ignore all these signs and symptoms, zinakuja zinakuput down, you start thinking about easy way out, and you think about suicide. So I would say over expectation, punguza. Wacha tu hii earth ikuje vile inakuja, kazana nayo, but wacha kujiwekea vitu mingi. Usiangalie life ya mwingine uanze kulinganisha na yako. I want to be like that person. Unajua alifika hapo aje. And there's a time I also wrote on my status, like, don't ever believe mtu akikwambia, when a successful person akikwambia I started from nothing. No one started from nothing. People start from somewhere. Number one, commitment. Watu wanza na kujenga goals zao. All those are things. So happiness is an inside job. Don't let any other person be in charge of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins, for those very amazing thoughts. And it's very, very true. And just as Eric had written in the chat box, it depends on where we give power to. And just as Collins, you have added, sometimes we are able to maybe control how we respond to situations, how we react, our emotions, how we think or overthink about situations, how sometimes we exaggerate things or we have very high expectations, and that might work against us eventually. So that means we also need to be very conscious about how we are taking situations in our lives and trying as much as possible to have a positive attitude. And I love what you've said about the example on the COVID situation. That is not something we can control, but it is something that we need to be aware of. So because we cannot change or control that, we should leave that alone. Leave what you cannot change. That just do your best in the situations that you are in. So thank you so much for that, Eric. And you've introduced that topic of how COVID-19 affected us or led to a higher maybe rate of suicide or likelihood of the cases increasing. And you have mentioned about isolation or withdrawal, because with the pandemic, we were forced to distance ourselves, reduce social interactions. It's advisable if you can work from home, that is best. If you can avoid a lot of movement, that is best. And we know that isolation and withdrawal is among the factors that will lead to mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and even suicidal ideations. At the same time, the stressful situation still exists, increasing a lot of panic and anxiety among us. At the same time, we had a lot of losses, loss of life, of loved ones, loss of jobs, loss of social interactions, a lot of losses. So it's very, very true that the pandemic increased chances of an increment of the cases. And I don't know if there are other factors that we might also contribute to that came with the pandemic and that would link suicide to the pandemic. So let's feel free to chat about that. Any changes that we might have seen from the pandemic that are increasing mental health issues that we can share. Kindly feel free to put that in the chat box or raise your hand and share that with us. Moses, thank you for adding that there is no thing like attention seeking or a person threatening to take their life to suicide. It is something that we should always be very keen about and we should always look into. That is very true, and thank you for that contribution. So as we type that in the chat box, allow us to go to the next point of discussion. And we would like to know, now that we are talking about these mental health issues that might lead to suicide, are there places where we can get help? What is the situation when it comes to accessing mental health services and programs in our communities, in our places of work, or in the different spaces we are in? Is there any alternative methods that we think we could use so that we prevent the situation getting out of hand. Any community tailor-made methods that we know are being used in different places, let's feel free to share all that. Or even if they are not already in use, any ideas that we might have that could be beneficial because of maybe the situation of lack of services. So let's talk about that. How accessible are these services? And if they are not accessible, how can we navigate that situation? Can we think about alternative methods? So I want to leave that to the public. Kindly let's share and discuss this among ourselves. Moses, you have raised your hand. Please feel free to share.
Thank you again. Maybe my concern is not in places, but is rather in the person going to seek this kind of services, because many a times, or rather in the near past, we've got so many places advertised in relation to mental health issues, and or rather dealing with the mental health issues. But what matters a lot is now the people, or rather the persons themselves, those going to seek such kind of services. How open are we? How free are we to discuss our issues? Because at the end of the day, you will go be advised, but when you get back to your house, you are you and you alone. What's the outcome? Yeah, the openness is what matters a lot. That's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Moses. Collins, I see you've also raised your hand.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. I think one of the best things, I'll specifically be not just talking about both genders, but I'm here hapa kwa men sana sana, because there are many people on the platform who can changia on other genders. But for men, we need to start creating opportunities that will bring men or a group of people together so that they can also form some social connections, and also find support. You see, I think Musa can bear me witness, because wakati wa COVID, we really realized that we needed to be together. And we have formed some groups zenye ni wanaume peke yake. And the things we talk about pale, ukirudi nyumbani una feel like I talked to someone. And that is what we need, some support. Because without that, tutakuwa tunakufa tu na hizo shida zetu. And also, we need also to teach men some coping and problem solving skills, because the only thing we can do is to help each other to manage our challenges, either ikuwe work related, ikuwe relationships, or even health issues. There are these things we call self-efficacy. Si kila mtu anakuanga capable kudetermine uwezo wake wa kudeal na challenges. Like you see problems, this is the easiest thing that people need to understand about solving problems zenye tuko nazo sisi kama wanaume. Don't deal with personalities, deal with issues. Kwa sababu shida ya kwa nini we never solve problems ni kwa sababu naona Musa anakuanga na temper. So naambia wewe Musa uko na temper, wewe hata ndo maana unaongea hivyo. I'm dealing with na inaitwa nini? Na nini ya Musa, personality ya Musa. I can never remove that from Musa. Na inanipea stress sana juu Musa hataki kuchange. But I can deal with the issue at hand. Ameleta ni issue gani Musa amecause. When I deal with that, it is easy for me to find solutions to the problems that we go through. But when I'm trying to deal with personalities, sitatoboa. Why do I go to the easiest way ya commit suicide? Because I can't deal with, let me say, uko na shida na bibi yako kwa nyumba. I can't deal with her. Anapenda kubrag, so unaongea kuhusu personality yake. But ukiulizwa shida ni gani? Do you know, watu wengi hata waweza kukwambia shida ni gani? So already uko clogged na a lot of things in your head, but you don't know the specific issue. So when you come up with these support groups are, let's say wanaume too, opportunities where they can just sit and talk about these things confidentially, making all members hapo feel like this is a place you can talk. The stories zitaishia hapa, tutasaidiana vile tutakuwa na solutions. That can really help a lot. And you will know from the bottom of every single thing, ukideal na hiyo issue, utapata peace rather than deal with that person. Because at the end of the day, if you're not thinking about suicide we mwenyewe, you will think about killing the other person. And it has happened. And especially time ya COVID. I'm talking about this because issues of gender violence increased a lot. And let me not say increased, but it was visual. Zimekuwa hapo kuanzia kitambo. But this time around, since COVID ilitokea, now it was visual. Everyone now could see it, but it has been there. Even looking at the issue of suicide, it might not have increased. Inaweza kuwa ilikuwa hapo ever since, but it was not being reported. But with COVID, situation that ilikuja tu hivi, now they started being visual. So I would say, yeah, having to teach men on coping and problem solving skills, and also creating opportunities for people to form groups that can help or support each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins, for that very, very helpful comment, because it's very true. You have said you have talked about two very important methods that we could borrow from. And the first one is creating support systems where people can just come and talk and share about what is going on in their lives and support each other through it. And the second one, being able to learn skills, teaching people skills so that they are able to handle the different challenges that are coming. And you've also talked about self-efficacy, self-awareness, or being able to be in tune with our own challenges or what is happening in our lives, and being able to also notice when that is happening with others, so that we are in a position to question or bring that to light and we can deal with the challenge itself. And in the chat box, Grace has also mentioned that Nzumari Africa is offering psychological services, and she has also given the contact. So if we have any person or we ourselves would like to talk to a therapist, Nzumari Africa offers that for free. And thank you so much, Grace, journey. You do not have to walk through it alone. Reach out and we would love to support you. Eric also added that teaching philosophy would also be helpful because it will reinforce our mental fortitude, that is resilience. It will reinforce our resilience and enable us to face and get past the challenges in life. So thank you so much, Eric, for adding that. Moses also adds that a safe space to deal with mental health issues and minimize suicide cases can be created anywhere, even in our own homes. What matters is who is ready to talk and who is very ready to listen. So thank you, Moses, for bringing that up. Because the listening part, sometimes you might get fatigue listening to maybe people who are sharing. It's called compassion fatigue, if I am not wrong. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's why we normally say that we need to be there and be there relentlessly. Sometimes it might need you to take time and patience, because this might not be a journey or a situation that you'd need to be there for one day. It might take a month or even a year. So we need to be there very, very patiently. So thank you so much, Moses, and even for shedding light that safe spaces should be everywhere, in our homes, in our workplaces. Just make sure that you are being a safe space to someone. So maybe, Maureen, you can also shed light to us on the principles of access to mental health services. Maybe you can wrap it up for us, talking about accessibility, alternative methods, and we can also feel free to put that in the chat box because we do not want to lock anyone out.
Thank you, Immaculate. I was actually just typing in the chat box on what Collins has talked about on getting to teach coping skills and life skills and all those types of skills. And I was just thinking about our school systems, which are playing a very major role in mental health. And currently in our country, I don't think that is happening. So how early are we starting to teach our children about mental health and the coping skills and life skills and how to deal with daily challenges? Because I think that's a big challenge. We cannot avoid challenges in our lives, and teaching that in schools, and since that is where the stages of development are, the most stages of development in a human being, how can we be able to integrate such things or such, such subjects or inapotea kwa mind. How can we be able to integrate the life skills and the coping skills and any other thing to do with mental health in our school curriculums so that our children are able to know this at a very early stage? And also, are our schools trauma informed? Are they ready to deal with traumas that our children get from day to day? So on the point in which Collins has brought up, it's very, very important to be able to integrate such things in our school systems. And also just to also insist on peer-to-peer support. That is one of the alternative ways probably that we really need in our communities right now. And just like you've talked about accessibility, not most of the services or programs in our country are accessible to most people in the communities. And especially when it comes to services, I mean, we only have one referral hospital in the whole country. So my major question is, will people be traveling all the way from Turkana or from all the way from Mandera or all those far places to come to Nairobi to seek mental health services in Mathare? That is one of the major challenges we have in this country. Mostly, we are not actually thinking of investing on the most priority areas like community-based healthcare. And your manner, most of the time, you find that people are not able to access such services. So peer-to-peer support is one of the biggest things that we need to embrace. And I think the government really needs to invest in that. I think there's somebody who talked about that in form of support system.
Is it me or we have lost Maureen?
Gotten lost. Yeah, how the government is able to put some certain features in the society so that everyone, and that includes everyone and including also the marginalized groups like persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and all other marginalized groups, and including the young people, putting those specific things so that everyone is able to access services and all the other things provided by the government or in our society on an equal basis with others. And if the government is not able to do that because some things cannot be immediate, then they need to provide reasonable accommodation. And there are 5 components of access, and that includes accessibility, the first one. First of all, are our services and programs in this country accessible? And that's why I talked about community-based programs, support, and services. Most of the times utapata that they are not accessible. And I think there's somebody who talked about the list going around of services that are provided. But for me, the biggest challenge is how many people could actually be able to access that? Are they in different communities? And if they are not, are we also providing programs for people to be able to access and to distress, and especially during this COVID time? Are there methods that we are providing, and not we, the state is providing for everyone to be able to access, and even those who don't have the money to pay for it? So accessibility is a very, very big challenge in this country. Not everybody could, and especially in the rural areas, and those people who cannot be able to access technology. How accessible are these services to us? And also, and considering that the literacy level in the country is very high, so how can they also be able to access services? How can they also be able to access mental health information in an easy to read or easy language, method? Because sometimes these things are technical. So how can we be able to, get that to them? So accessibility is a very big challenge. The other component is affordability. Oh my God, I think this is I don't know, every time that somebody comes to ask for referral, unless we refer them to Nzumari, which they provide free services, or we refer them to, county hospitals or all those places we know that are free. But how many people could, Nzumari be able to handle? Remember, we are 47 million people in this country. How many people could Red Cross be able to handle? And that is on the basis of also providing quality services. How many people could those few hospitals that offer free services be able to handle? So most of the time you find that we are referring people to private entities or to places that they can not actually be able to afford. And that includes also money for transport, still going back to the issue of accessibility. So affordability has really become a challenge. It is either we get public-private partnerships to be able to deal with this and have healthcare coverage for mental health. The other component is on acceptability. And this goes hand in hand. I mean, if anybody hears of, going to seek services in Mathare, and this is most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, most of the people will refuse because of, the stereotype that has been there about Mathare, all the things that are happening. But I'm very, very glad that the WHO quality rights has come up, and I'm still encouraging everybody to be able to undertake that specific training. And if somebody could also put it on the chat box. And the WHO quality rights insists on so many things, on access to services, like how you also get treated in the hospital, the freedom to make your own individual choices when it comes to medication and other things, the freedom to actually seek your own legal services and all that. So it's very, very important that everyone gets to do the WHO quality rights. And when we do it, how can we be able to also pass this information to other people in the society, so that we could also see that we could also be able to inform others on the acceptable methods of services that are supposed to be there globally and not only in the country. The other one is on, so I've talked about availability. Are these services available to everyone, and can everyone be able to access? That includes therapy, services, programs, all the programs that we have. And most of the time you find that the people providing these are non-governmental organization, but also the government has a very big task in that, because the government has an obligation to respect, fulfill, and respect, fulfill, and protect all persons in the country. So also getting those kind of services to the community is very, very important. And the last one is on quality, which I talked about. Are the services that we are being provided of quality, are they something that are actually making an impact in the society? Or are we just saying we are providing services? Are they something that we can actually see they're bringing changes to the society? And that also goes, that also is a challenge to the government to be able to see how they can do this. Yeah, so yeah, so I can't remember the other question, Immaculate.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for shedding light on those areas and comprehensively informing us about how the situation should be. If you're talking about mental health services, what exactly would this situation look like? It looks like affordability of services.
You're not clear.
What about now?
Yeah.
You're okay now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I was thanking Maureen for taking us through that very comprehensive session, shedding light on what exactly access means. We are not just talking about access, but talking about access to affordable services, knowing that the majority of the population is not able to afford private facility services. We are talking about quality. Yes, there might be services, but how is the quality? Access in terms of the number of places that we can afford services. And I love how you've given that example of, yes, we have places we can refer to like Nzumari, like Red Cross, but how many people can these facilities handle? So thank you so much for shedding light on those things. I think the first question, the second question was on the alternative methods, which is what you started with when you were talking about peer support. And the members also gave their feedback on what ways can we use as alternative methods now that this success as at now is still a challenge. So I think that was also answered. I see Moses.
Immaculate.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I would really love to get this out of my chest also, like also like workplaces. Can we be able to also encourage, if you're an employer, can we be able to also encourage people to take breaks? For me, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't believe in the 8 to 5 jobs, not jobs, but that routine. But I believe in measuring work according to output. So if somebody is in distress, and you can really see they're in distress, somebody is on medication, somebody has asked for reasonable accommodation at their workplace. So how can we be able to accommodate this person? Maybe providing flexible working hours, but also making sure that they are achieving those specific outputs. Yeah.
Thank you so much for adding that. And it's very true, because where these workplaces are the places that we spend the full day. So we need to also ensure that we are looking into some of these factors. Moses, I see your hand is raised. I don't know if that was from the past or you would want to add anything, but I would really like to invite people to share from what Maureen has said. Is there any inputs, comments that we would like to give on that?
Oh, yes, Immaculate. I would like to add something on what Maureen has just talked about. Matters illiteracy. You see, when the issues of like HIV/AIDS came along, cancer, TB, there was so much information going around, and so many IEC materials were published in regards to sensitization and awareness. I believe when matters mental health also came in, it also should be treated in the same manner. Why am I saying this? Yeah, because we get a case whereby it's like urban versus rural. Many of the talks that we make it for urban cases. But what about those people living in the rural villages? Yeah, how well are they informed about issues to do with mental health? How well are they gotten, or rather, how well do they deal with matters mental health? So I think when we are dealing with these matters, we should also like publish materials maybe in their local languages, yeah, so for them to understand what we are talking about, or rather what is being talked about when matters mental health is being discussed. Thank you.
May I say something on what Baraza has just shared, please?
Yes.
Messaging is very key, but now we are failing as organizations because we are complicating messages. There are terms when they are used kwa kuongelea issues za mental health to mtoto wa rural area, umempoteza zaidi. Just the same way the issues of gender equality comes, the statements that are written from wherever policymakers huko juu, by the time they come all the way to huku Korogocho or Kariobangi, kuna misinterpretation. So I'm thinking simplicity of these messages. Aki, mimi naomba, because with issues of mental health, guys are going through a lot hapa nje, but hawajui specific word ya hiyo kitu wana go through. That is why people call unapata msee anaumwa na kichwa anasema aki niko na stress, but ajui stress how do you define stress? Mimi nasikia niko na depression, to them is just a word, but kwa wale watu wamefanya mental health those professions wanajua hii ni category fulani ya what you're going through. So to someone mwenye ako tu huku chini anajua stress, depression, nini zote ni moja. So when you're doing even messaging, as we're doing awareness, can we have simplicity of terms, or tuachane tu hizo terms tuzieke tu vizuri, like you can say it is okay not to be okay. That is good. Ukimexplainia naona ina make sense. But akitajua kitu kama schizophrenia, kwanza by the time unamaliza kutaja the word alishapotea na alienda, and we know our people hapa nje ukianza kuongea vitu zile ngumu they will go. So it goes back to people who are doing the creation of awareness. How simplified can you make this component be to that person who is there pale chini kwa the informal settlements, and that way people will grab on the best information that you wanted to convey, rather than uitaje uongeze hizo terms zote alafu mtoto atokeo akisema mimi hata ule sande ameniongeza hata stress zaidi. I just wanted to say that. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins, for adding to that. And it's very true, because when we are talking about access and creating awareness, yet we are using terms that might not be understood by the person in the grassroots level, we will still be missing out on that part of ensuring accessibility to everyone. So thank you so much for shedding that light. And even if it's possible to have this awareness created even in our mother tongues or in languages that people will be able to understand. And I love how you've also brought about that analogy of the situation when TB, malaria, HIV was being navigated. A lot of awareness was made and a lot of brochures, a lot of information. And it will be so good to see that happening with mental health as well, because it is a health issue just like those. And so it should be treated with the same importance. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And in the chat box, people are supporting that. I see Jolie is saying messaging and language is very key. And if we can find a way to break down these messages, it's idea. It's very true. Sarah also says, I agree with you, Collins. Mental health first aid can really come in handy. Then have a mini talk before treatment. And yes, it is an illness like no other. You see the way when you go for a HIV AIDS test, you're given all talk. I wish we could also have a simple language that is understandable for mental health. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that. And that is actually very true that how HIV and AIDS today is handled is very, very different. And with the continued awareness creation, we need to be very deliberate on some of these things that we could also say need to be introduced. It's quite unfortunate that even medical practitioners sometimes might not really know you're going through a mental health issue. That is a medical practitioner who is probably a clinical officer or any other person who might not necessarily be a mental health professional. So this is information that even the hospital needs to have. If we can even have those posters on the wall that talk about TB, that talk about different illnesses, can we also have for mental health, so that even a person who might not know what they are going through, but when they read through those writings, they can relate and see, this is what I am going through. So we need a lot of that, so that we ensure that we see the change that we are advocating for. Anyone else who would like to add on the part of access or any other thing that we have talked about? So we have learned today that the components of access include accessibility, affordability, availability, acceptability, and quality. So that is very good information. Now we can even do advocacy with that in mind, so that we know the right things that we should be advocating that policy makers provide and they are budgeted for, or how we should do advocacy, ensuring that quality is maintained. So thank you so much, Maureen, for that. Moses, I see your hand is up.
Yes, just a small addition.
Yes.
You see, matters HIV/AIDS, the way it was handled, so many HTC counselors were trained, even in smaller organizations, smaller colleges, yeah? So maybe if mental health issues, or rather psychologists were being trained to that level and deployed to very many places, this would curb the issues of suicide. That's my thought anyway. Thank you.
Yes, that is very, very true. And we need such trainings for mental health as well. Something like psychological first aid is something that anyone in the public can do if they are trained how to. And we know that we are coming from the pandemic where all of us have been needing some form of psychological first aid. The people who have lost their loved ones, people working in workplaces where there are losses of employees, that is something that should be very, very, very necessary to all of us. So I agree that we should ensure that people are trained on how to deal with some of these things. Jolly, I see your hand is up.
Yes, maybe another addition, especially when it comes to suicide prevention. Now this comes to the media part. Like the media should, especially when reporting on cases of suicide, they shouldn't be going into detail of how the person maybe died by suicide or the actions they took, and also like glorifying the fact that, oh, this person died by suicide because they wanted to be famous, etc., etc. Because such reports in a way influence other people to want to duplicate that person. So instead, the media should just like wanaitangaza tu, then hapo mwisho they can also raise awareness on the same, like their hotlines, etc, etc. People can get help in such and such a place, rather than now glorifying the act, glorifying the victim, and even taking us through the steps the person used to die by suicide. Yes.
That is very true. The media has played a big role in maybe copycat suicide cases. because of how we do reporting. So I totally agree, because sometimes the way we do reporting might be causing more damage than good. There's someone who is probably in distress, maybe has already had thoughts of taking their lives by suicide. And then when you continuously see these cases, the methods being explained, and then sensationalizing this issue is definitely something that would cause a lot more cases. So that is very true. And we need to continue emphasizing and creating awareness on media reporting when it comes to suicide, because it has a very big impact. So thank you so much, Jolie, for that addition. I hope you are not locking anyone out who had something to add on that. Collins, in the chat box, you have said that the police also need to be sensitized to know how to handle this topic. By itself, it's a sensitive issue. So how you approach it might make someone even more demoralized. And umesema polisi waache kuuliza wanaume wamechapwa, unachapwa na mwanamke, how? So we need to change that, because it adds more pain, considering this person is already in need of help, and then you're minimizing this person's problem. You're even embarrassing and humiliating them even further by asking such questions. So it's very true, because that is the kind of questions that we get in such places, and sometimes even in hospitals, which is a very sad situation, because the hospital should be a safe space or a safe place. So it's very, very true. We need a lot of awareness so that people understand the nature of these issues that we are talking about. So there was a question on the social determinants that might lead to more suicide cases. Let's feel free to also add that, so that we know what things we need to look out for, what things we need to also create awareness about that might lead into suicide cases or more mental health issues. So what social determinants affect mental health or would lead to more cases of suicide? Kindly let's contribute that so that we share that.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone who would want to share that? Maureen?
Yes. So first of all, the social determinants are conditions in which people live in and are born in and growing and age and all that. So some of the social determinants of health, and that includes also mental health, are, one of them is the socio-economic status. Sorry, somebody is telling you to repeat the question. So I don't know if you would like to repeat that. Immaculate.
Sorry, I think I had lost you for a while. I think my network is a bit shaky.
I'm saying somebody has asked about the question in the chat box. I don't know if you'd like to repeat that.
Oh, yes. We are talking about what will be the social determinants that would affect mental health or cause or be precipitating factors leading to suicide or other mental health issues. You can continue.
Yeah, so the socioeconomic status in the country, I mean, we all know what COVID brought, and especially when all these issues of lockdown started coming in, people have lost their businesses, people have lost their employment, people have pay cuts, and at the same time, that same person has a family, or it's a young person who is trying to develop their career, then unakuja tu unamwambia, you know, like a person like me who graduated back in 2019, hata sijapewa time ya explore, you know, the field or or what is happening, then all of a sudden COVID comes and the country is locked down, employment level goes down, people are being retrenched and all that. So one of the issues that can really cause, can really lead somebody to those kinds of suicidal thoughts, or, trying to, sorry, I don't know why I'm losing my words today. I think I'm just confused. Yeah, so one of them is the financial constraint. And it's really playing a big factor right now. And also all those frustrations then lead to things like gender-based violence, sexual gender-based violence, domestic violence, and especially because hatukuwa tumezoea kuishi pamoja, then all of a sudden, the lockdown comes in and all that happens. So one of them is the socioeconomic status. Also, the environment in which we live in. COVID has really increased the crime rates in the country. Of course, the education level, not being aware of what mental health is, and all the stigma that is there, so preventing even people from opening up, and also the aspect of food and hunger, because many people have lost their jobs and they cannot be able to fend for that. And also the aspect of community and social integration, that is mostly about discrimination, and especially to those who are from marginalized groups, and lack of support systems, including peer-to-peer support groups. Peer-to-peer support, family support, and all that. And also lack of healthcare coverages, just like I talked about accessibility and quality healthcare. So yeah, those are just generally the social determinants of health.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for sharing that information with us. Very key points to note, because that is what we now need to address if we hope to see that these issues of mental health issues are reducing in our society. So thank you so much for shedding light on that. Collins?
Wow, that is so informative, and I really think from what I've heard, there are things that are never talked about. There's something we call the black tax, where it's only existing in Africa, and that is a social problem to issues of mental health. Black tax. Mimi kama Collins, I grew up and my parents walinilea, wakanipatia education, nikapelekwa hadi high school, nikamaliza, nikaenda college, and now I'm working. Now that is where everything starts from. So black tax says, wala wako nyuma yako, unafaa kuangalia. Wanafaa pia wasome kama wewe. So in short, responsibility may shift from our parents, our grandpa, to you. Sasa wewe, you're taking care of all that. Brother zako, tuseme nyinyi mulikuwa na the akukudenja mantra, watoto 35. Sasa wewe ndio firstborn. All these people are looking at you, my friend. Alafu COVID ndio hiyo inakuja. Black tax will kill us. Sincerely. You're expected to now give back. Na hebu jaribu kukosa. It's another issue. Kama hauna, they are not there with you. You are isolated. Ukiwa nayo, wako na wewe hapo, wanaikula dinaisha. So I think socially, we are really suffering from this black tax. Utaipata kwa wazungu. I'm not trying to talk against culture. Mimi sijui ni culture gani, but it's there. It's engraved in us. Ukisoma ufike kampo, that is even worse. Heri wale sisi tulimaliza form 4 ama class 8. Malizia campus. Like our colleague ameongea akasema, nilimaliza tu hivi nika graduate, but I've not eaten anything from what I've done in school. COVID ilikuja. But now wao wajui hiyo, wanajua ile graduate ukapewa ile kofia. So they know. With or without, I don't know, kazi ama nini, sasa wewe ndio wanakuangalia. Boss, this thing is going to take people down. Wengi sana. I'm saying this because it's happening, but people are not talking about it. And people are lying that it's culture. It's not culture. People are just taking advantage. Ukikataa kufanya, you're bad. Ukifanya, wanakuambia fanya zaidi. Sometimes you even pay school fees for wale watoto wa watu wengine, wewe watoto wako hujalipia. Na ukilipia wako na ulikose kulipia pale, watasema uko na pesa na bado walipi. In short, it's a social thing that is really affecting and eating us Africans. So I don't know if that one will ever go, misi jui, but it's something that is there and it's making people run mad. Inafika mahali unapotea overnight, unaenda una lost urudi. Why? Because people over depend on you and you don't have, and they will not listen. Watakwambia likusomesha. So what do you do? Anyway, that was just my... Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins, for bringing that up, because it's very true. It's a very real situation. And just as you have said, it's something that people do not want to talk about. And I also love that Maureen mentioned that these social determinants are things we find ourselves in. We grow up in, we age in. So sometimes we might even excuse them and say they are okay, they are culture, but are we looking at the impact they are having on people's well-being? You know, so some of the things that we might have normalized might be working against us at the end of the day. And now those are some of the social factors we need to be very keen on.
Thank you. First of all, apologies, sasa ndo nimeingia. Ni tabia mbaya sana panelist kufika kama amechelewa hivi. However, I just wanted to say something kidogo tu. I do understand issues of pressure na hizo vitu zingine, and I just want to pick it up kutoka mahali Collins amewachia. Na so the question I'd like to ask is, I know huwa inauma wakati mzigo imekuangukia. However, do we sit and think, okay, the people who paid for us tukafika mahali tumefika, what kind of suffering did they go through? Because some of us tumesoma kwa shida. Some of us, wakati mzazi alikuwa anasema hana pesa, we could not believe them. Tulikuwa tunajua wanatuchukia. No, you have to take us to campus. No, you have to take us to college. No, lazima nilipie shule. So maybe wakati walikuwa wanatulipia pia walikuwa na go through hizi issues. Unaget? So I do understand that issue ya black tax when inatupatia a lot of pressure, and the fact that they do not want to understand. However, you will find that issue ya black tax haikuwagi tu kwa Africans, na kwa specific Africans, the poor ndio wanakuwaga na black tax. So if I am poor and I give my all kupeleka shule, it is an investment. That is the rationale. This is an investment I'm making in you so that you will assist me in taking care of your siblings. Are you getting what I'm saying? So I think even when we are talking about, and I think naongea hivi because mimi ni mzazi, and I see what is happening to me and what I go through to put my kids through school. I know it is not okay for me to do this niki-expect kitu. However, the situation kwa ground inanilazimu. Some of these parents wanauza mpaka shamba wapeleke mtoto campus. Now umemaliza campus, no more shamba to take other people to school. Sasa unataka siblings zako wasomeshwe na nani na wewe ulikula pesa yote? However, I think if sisi kama watoto, if we will be but then hiyo pia ni ku-expect too much. You know, watoto waseme, okay, mzazi nifikisha mali utanifikisha, mali utashindiwa wachana na mimi. How many of us will agree and accept that? How many of our kids, those of us who are parents, will accept kitu kama hiyo? You know, like, and I think that is something which we really need to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raymond, for those thoughts. That definitely captures our mind and gives us an opportunity to think further about that. So where should the balance be? Because at the same time, it's still an issue, just as Collins had said. leading to people probably even into mental health issues. So maybe that will be for discussion another day, so that we know how exactly should we handle this situation. Should we share with our family? Maybe when you are completely not okay, that they excuse you, and then when you're fine, you continue supporting. But that definitely gives us something to be thinking about. I think we can talk about that in the next session. In the meantime, I see Arnold's hand is also raised.
Yes, thank you, Immaculate, and thank you to all those who have shared very insightful knowledge and remarks since the session started. Mostly, I've engaged myself with different processes of SDGs, and now listening deeply into aspects of mental health, understanding some concepts. I would like to ask, maybe Maureen or maybe someone can take it. Would you recommend social media, since now most people are at home? I've been at home since the beginning of the pandemic, and much socialization or activities, physical activities do not take place. Would you recommend social media as a result or as a solution for someone to speak out or reach out or handle suicidal thoughts?
I don't know if there's any other panelists who would like to go, but I can answer that. Well, I think social media is playing a really, really large role, negatively and positively. So I would actually recommend social media as a means for advocates and all other people who are dealing with mental health practitioners, professionals, to create awareness. Because with social media, then we are reaching a higher percentage of people, not only in our country, but globally. I would also recommend it for advocating for the rights of persons with psychosocial disabilities and mental health conditions. This is because first of all, to note that mental health is not something that should be a luxury. This is a human right, and human rights is something that everybody is born with, the human rights and fundamental freedoms. So for the advocates, and not only the advocates, but everyone else to be able to also advocate for their human right. So I would recommend social media for that specific thing. I don't know what kind of social media we are talking about, Facebook, all that. But I also believe so much in privacy and confidentiality. So I believe that so many things are happening online right now. And that includes also Zoom and all other platforms that we are using to work and to also speak out and all that. So the first thing I would recommend is, yes, I would recommend opening up on Zoom. I mean, somewhere that is private and confidential. And this is for one specific thing. And maybe, I mean, there could actually be opposition to that because of privacy and confidentiality. I believe the world is a very cruel place, and I don't know how we are going to deal with that. But I really believe in privacy. So if somebody is to speak up, then yes, I would believe that this is actually a safe space for somebody to do that. And I've seen so many peer support groups coming up, I mean, to speak about mental health and creating a safe space online for people to be able to speak in. So yes, I would recommend. I don't know if Zoom is included in social media, but I actually don't know if I would encourage anyone to do that in Facebook and TikTok and wherever. But I would recommend those medias as a way of creating awareness.
Thank you, Maureen, for sharing
Thank you.
that. Anyone who would have any input to add on that, the impact on social media is also welcome. And I'm really glad to hear from Arnold that the conversation sheds light on many other aspects because you deal with the SDGs area. And just as we'll come to realize, mental health is a very basic component in literally every aspect of life. And that is why we say there is no wealth, there is no development, there is no productivity. All those areas that we want to develop, we can't develop until we have mental health and wellness. And that is why we would really love that the government also looks at it like that. We want productivity, we want economic growth and success at our workplaces and companies. But if you're not looking at employees' wellness, the productivity will not be there. So mental health is at the basis of every single thing. And just as Maureen has said, yes, social media is a good platform where people can reach out and even seek help, but it needs to be in a very intentional and sensitive way, because just as Maureen has said, it could be a way for people to attack you back or make you feel bad for sharing. So we need to find a very intentional way of sharing such information. So Seb also asks, how can you trust someone before you share how you feel? That is what I'm thinking the question sounds like. How can you trust someone before you share how you feel? Maybe Grace can share that with us, or anyone can also share that with us. How can you trust someone before you share how you feel? I hope I am saying it right, Seth. So before Grace maybe comes on board, what I would say about sharing and trusting is for the person who is trying to, you might not have provided a safe space. So that means you should really look into seeing how you are approaching them. Is it in a judgmental way? Are you saying words that might minimize their situation? You know, sometimes you might think that you might be helping, but some words we say might do the opposite. So for such a situation, that person needs to create a calm and trusting environment that would make this person feel comfortable enough to share. So I don't know if that helps in any way, but that is how I would contribute to that. Grace or anyone in the platform, you can also help to answer. How can you trust someone before you share how you feel?
Maybe for a starting point, this can be someone you've known for a while, someone you've before like shared a few things with, because I don't think you can just start sharing something very personal with a stranger. So for the first step, I think it should just be someone you've known for a while and someone you've engaged with before in other issues.
Thank you, Jolly, for that. That's very true. We also need to be very careful about who you can share the information with, because some people might not maintain confidentiality, or how they receive the information you give them might be frustrating and disappointing. So thank you so much, Jolie, for that. Anyone else who might have contribution to that, feel free to type that in the chat box so that we go to our last point of discussion for this meeting today, and we can all contribute to it very promptly because of time. So the last part is, yes, we have had this conversation, but what is the role that we all play? Because we say that we all have a role to play when it comes to suicide prevention. So what is the role of individuals? What is the role of communities? What is the role of anyone and everyone in this journey of suicide prevention? Who would like to start?
I can say something.
Yes.
Previously I talked about happiness, but now I'm going to just say make someone smile every day. But again, never forget that you are someone too. So usitengenezee tu wengine nini smile lakini unajifunga. Make yourself also smile. You're also an individual. Thank you.
Nicely said. Thank you so much for that. That brings up a lot, self-care and just also checking in with yourself, even as you're checking in with other people. Thank you for that, Collins. What role as individuals, as communities, as the government do we all play when it comes to suicide prevention in reducing the numbers and the rate of suicide? Yes, Maureen?
Oh, I'm trying to look. Okay, so I think that I would actually love to speak more on the civil societies, organizations, that it is our own role to actually advocate for better services, better programs, better, better support, and actually trying to elevate human rights to the next level. It is also an individual responsibility to participate in all the public participations that are there, channeling all our recommendations and what we would love to see in future. And I think it is also the role of the government to include persons with lived experiences in policy formulation and policy integration. And that includes also including all marginalized groups, including young people, persons with disabilities, persons from indigenous groups, having that meaningful participation of every represented groups in the societies. I think I mentioned also that the government has a very big role in protecting, respecting, and fulfilling their obligation. So one of them is accessibility, making sure that these programs are actually getting to the societies. And I had somebody talk about trainings, and most of the time you will find that it is actually the civil societies doing that job, but it is also the work of the government to to make sure that trainings are happening to every specific group, including the police, including which other groups, including the youth, health workers, and all other sectors that we think is important for them to receive trainings. So first of all, it is very important that every individual gets to know that mental health is a human right. And for us to be able to to come together and know how we can amplify these voices by forming coalitions, by forming civil societies that could be able to actually advocate for this, for better services, because I think currently the budget in Kenya is 0.01. I know this cannot be increased immediately because it's not an immediate realization, but how can it be increased? How can we advocate for progressive realization of this, because there's that declaration by the Abuja Declaration that states that every government should have at least, 15% of every health, 15% of the budget of the country's budget should be dedicated to health. So now we are at 0.01. It cannot be increased immediately, but how can we advocate for, progressive realization of this, and especially when it comes to mental health? And the first area is actually getting to realize our priority areas in the country. What do we want to be improved? Is it community-based programs? Is it institutions? What priority areas do we have as a country, so that we can be able to advocate for that? Because we cannot just go to the government and tell them, invest in mental health, increase the budget of mental health. What priority areas do we have? What do we want them to actually invest in? So it is up to us, and as individuals, as civil societies, to be able to do that research and come together, form coalitions to be able to elevate this to the next level, and also realize that it is a progressive realization. It cannot be done just immediately. But how can we make sure that there's steps being done every now and then? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for shedding light on those roles, and even making us think more about us as civil service organizations, CSOs. Where do we need to pay attention to? What do we need to be looking at? What do we need to be advocating for? Because just as you mentioned, we have a role to play when it comes to suicide prevention. We need to hold the government accountable and know what we are advocating for. We need to know the priority areas. Anyone else who would have a contribution on what roles individuals, the government, and communities play can also share with us. In the meantime, Eric has shared on the previous question on how to share, how you can trust someone before you share how you feel. And Eric says you can start with as little details as you go up slowly. Also, if possible, share something that wouldn't be very detrimental to you if it gets to the public, and if it happens to be personal. Or among the other options that we might have is also talking to the counselors that we have who provide these services, because they are strangers. This is not a person you know. This is a person who is doing this professionally, hence using ethics, and they are in a therapeutic relationship in order to help you move past your situation. So if you can, if you don't feel like you trust the people around you, you can talk to them, just see them as a stranger who you are telling someone, and they will keep it confidential because they are held by the ethics to any AOBs, comments, additions. As I can see, our time is not on our side, so we need to be finishing up. Seth, I see your hand is up.
First and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for the topic that you brought up and the forum. Actually, sometimes I just want to say, like, listening to such forums, it opens up and gets to know more. And like most of the time, I do meet guys who feel like they want to share, but you feel like they want to hide it because they don't trust most of the people. That's why I asked of that question. But I have got a little bit of the answer. because I have some similar cases to some kids that I meet around. Generally, I deal with a community, and I'm based at Mukuru. So I just want to thank you and also continue doing this and creating a lot of forums so that we can get more information and we can equip out there with other people who are suffering from this. I just want to thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth. Sorry for that. And we are really glad that you could join us and we could have this conversation together, learn together, so that we know how to best help people in our communities. And you're doing amazing work with the community as well. Margaret in the chat box says, very great insights from this forum. Keep up, friends. Thank you so much, Margaret. Jolie, Maureen, Collins, Raymond, panelists for the day. Any parting shots that we might have?
Mine is to just like on the role part, to emphasize on the media's role in raising awareness, in linking people to care, in reporting in a manner that is not discriminative, or in a manner that is not praising the victim, especially when the victim has died by suicide. So mine is just that emphasis on the role of the media in mental health awareness in general.
Thank you for that. Maureen, any parting shots?
Well, none for now, but thank you so much, everyone, for having us and for that amazing session. I've gotten to learn a lot.
Any parting shots?
But I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Amazing. So I think we've come to the end of the session today. Thank you so much to all of us who were able to join in and have this important conversation. There's a lot of information that we have learned today, a lot of things that we might not have been paying attention to that we now need to start paying attention to as we continue doing our advocacy work. So thank you so much to our panelists for sharing all this knowledge with us. Thank you so much to all of us for sacrificing and being part of this platform. And we hope through this, we see the changes that we'd hope to see. And we continue supporting each other. So I think with that, it brings us to a close of the session. Maybe all have a good night. Thank you, Sarah, as well. Sarah says she has learned a lot. That's amazing. So I think we can unmute and say bye as we leave. Yes.